Victoria Sterling's racket drops. The billionaire CEO stares in disbelief as Marcus Reed, the janitor she mockingly challenged, calmly returns to his cleaning cart. 21-12, crushed by a maintenance worker in work boots. Before we dive in, comment where in the world you are watching from, and don't forget to click subscribe. The racket felt foreign in Victoria Sterling's manicured hands as she stood in the executive gym, adjusting her designer athletic wear. At 34, the blonde CEO of Sterling Industries commanded boardrooms with ease, but rarely ventured into physical competition. She'd booked the court for stress relief after another grueling merger negotiation, never expecting company. The maintenance door opened and Marcus Reed entered, pushing his cleaning cart, his 7-year-old daughter Sophie trailing behind clutching a worn teddy bear. Victoria's ice-blue eyes narrowed. The gym was supposed to be executive access only during business hours. Marcus froze seeing her there. "Sorry, Miss Sterling," he said quietly, his weathered hands gripping the cart handle. "I'll come back later." Sophie peeked around her father's legs, her green eyes wide with curiosity at the gleaming court and expensive equipment. Victoria noticed the child's fascination, and something shifted in her expression. "Does she play?" Victoria asked, surprising herself with the question. Marcus shook his head. "She just watches videos on my phone during breaks. Can't afford lessons." Victoria picked up a spare racket from her bag, an impulsive decision forming. "Tell you what, Reed, beat me in badminton, and I'll personally ensure your daughter gets free lessons at the country club." She smirked, the expression both challenging and dismissive. "Of course, we both know that's unlikely." Marcus studied her for a long moment, his gray eyes revealing nothing. Sophie tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, you should play. You're really good at the park." Victoria's smirk widened. "The park? How quaint. Come on, Reed. One game. Unless you're afraid of embarrassing yourself." Something flickered across Marcus's face. He looked down at Sophie, then back at Victoria. "Watch Daddy's things, sweetheart," he said softly, setting down his cart. He picked up the offered racket, testing its weight with practiced ease. "Standard rules?" he asked calmly. Victoria laughed. "Obviously. Ladies first." She served hard, expecting an easy point. Marcus returned it with effortless precision, placing the shuttlecock just inside the back line. Victoria scrambled, barely managing to return it. Marcus's response was a gentle drop shot that died just over the net. Her surprise lasted only a moment before competitive fire ignited. The next serve came harder, faster. Marcus moved with fluid grace, his work boots somehow not hindering his footwork. The maintenance uniform that usually made him invisible couldn't hide the athletic precision of his movements. Each shot was calculated, patient, waiting for the perfect opening. Victoria found herself working harder than she had in years. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she lunged for shots that seemed impossible to reach. Marcus wasn't just competent. He was methodical, strategic, reading her patterns and exploiting weaknesses she didn't know she had. Sophie watched from the sidelines, her eyes bright with pride. "That's my daddy," she whispered to her teddy bear. "He's the best." The score tilted decisively in Marcus's favor. Victoria's serves grew desperate, her returns wild. Marcus remained calm, each shot deliberate and devastating. When he executed a perfect jump smash that Victoria couldn't even attempt to return, the game ended, 21-12. Marcus set down the racket and moved to collect his cart as if nothing had happened. Victoria stood frozen, breathing hard, her carefully styled blonde hair now damp with exertion. "How?" she managed to ask. "State champion in college," Marcus said simply, before life got complicated. He glanced at Sophie, who was beaming at him. "About those lessons, they start Monday." Victoria said, her CEO composure slowly returning. 4:30 at Riverside Country Club. Ask for Coach Williams." Marcus nodded once. "Thank you, Miss Sterling. Come on, Sophie, time to finish our rounds." As they left, Victoria remained on the court, processing what had happened. She'd been thoroughly beaten by a janitor who wore work boots on a badminton court, but it was the quiet dignity in his manner, the way he hadn't gloated or even smiled at his victory, that lingered in her mind. Monday arrived, and Victoria found herself at Riverside Country Club at 4:30, though she had no good reason to be there. Through the viewing window, she watched Sophie's first lesson, the little girl's face glowing with joy as she learned proper grip and footwork. Marcus stood quietly in the corner, still in his maintenance uniform, having come straight from work. Victoria entered the viewing area and stood beside him. "She's a natural coach," Williams said, her voice carrying through the glass. "Very coordinated for her age." "Like her father," Victoria said, glancing at Marcus. "Why didn't you pursue it professionally?" Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. "Sophie's mom got sick when she was 2. Treatments weren't covered by my insurance. I took whatever work paid best with benefits. Badminton scholarships don't provide health coverage." The weight of his words settled between them. Victoria had never considered how talent could be secondary to survival, how dreams could be traded for necessities. "How long ago did she pass?" Victoria asked softly. 5 years. Marcus's voice was steady, but his eyes remained fixed on Sophie. "She doesn't remember much, but I make sure she knows her mom was brave, loved her more than anything." Victoria watched Sophie successfully return a serve and squeal with delight. The pure joy in that sound stirred something Victoria had buried under years of corporate ambition and careful control. Tuesday evening, Victoria appeared at the community center where she'd learned Marcus volunteered teaching badminton to underprivileged kids. She stood in the doorway watching him demonstrate proper serving technique to a group of eager children. His patience was infinite, correcting form, with gentle adjustments and encouraging words. Sophie was helping, showing the younger kids how to hold their rackets properly with the serious concentration of someone who'd just learned herself the day before. When Marcus noticed Victoria, his eyebrows rose in surprise. "Miss Sterling? What brings you here?" "I wanted to see where the state champion teaches," Victoria said, stepping inside. The space was cramped, the equipment worn, but the energy was infectious. "Also, I brought some equipment." She gestured to the door where several boxes of professional-grade rackets and shuttlecocks waited. The children's excited voices filled the space as they explored the new gear. Marcus moved closer to Victoria, his expression unreadable. "You didn't have to do this." "I wanted to," she replied, meeting his gaze. "Talent shouldn't be limited by circumstance." Something in his gray eyes softened. "Would you like to help with the lesson?" "Me?" Victoria looked uncertain. "I just got thoroughly beaten, remember? You have perfect form," Marcus said quietly. "You just need to trust your instincts more. Stop overthinking every shot." For the next hour, Victoria found herself immersed in teaching, laughing, as she helped small hands master basic grips. Sophie appointed herself Victoria's special assistant, seriously explaining that Miss Victoria was still learning, so everyone should be patient. The comment should have stung Victoria's pride, but instead, she found herself charmed by the child's earnest desire to help. Wednesday, Victoria stayed late at the office wrestling with a hostile takeover that threatened 200 jobs. The stress was crushing when she heard the familiar sound of Marcus's cleaning cart in the hallway. She emerged from her office and found him methodically emptying wastebaskets, Sophie asleep on a bench nearby, covered with Marcus's jacket. "Rough day?" Marcus asked, noticing her expression. Victoria nodded, gesturing to Sophie. "No babysitter? My neighbor who usually watches her had an emergency," Marcus explained. "She's been here since 6. I'm almost done." Victoria studied the sleeping child's peaceful face, then made a decision. "There's a couch in my office. She'll be more comfortable there." Marcus hesitated, then carefully lifted Sophie, carrying her into Victoria's executive suite. The little girl stirred slightly, mumbling about birdies and rackets, before settling back into sleep. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly. "She's everything to me." "I can see that," Victoria replied. "The merger I'm fighting would eliminate jobs like yours. People with families who need stability. I used to think of employees as numbers on spreadsheets. You never see us," Marcus said without accusation. "We're invisible until something goes wrong, or someone needs something cleaned. But every janitor, every security guard, every maintenance worker has a story. A Sophie waiting at home, or a dream they traded for survival." Victoria felt the truth of his words like a physical weight. Her father had built Sterling Industries on the backs of workers like Marcus, but she'd never really seen them. "The board meeting is tomorrow," she said suddenly. "The vote on the merger. Would you tell me what you think? Really think?" Marcus met her eyes directly. "I think companies forget that their greatest asset isn't their stock price or their technology. It's the people who show up every day, who believe their work matters, even when the world tells them they're replaceable." Thursday morning, Victoria stood before the board, her blonde hair pulled back severely, her navy suit impeccable. But her words were different than planned. She spoke about sustainability, not just financial, but human. About building a company that valued loyalty and dedication at every level. The board voted narrowly to reject the merger. That evening, Victoria found Marcus and Sophie at the community center. Sophie was practicing serves, while Marcus watched with quiet pride. Victoria approached, carrying her own racket. "Mind if I join the lesson?" she asked. Sophie's face lit up. "Miss Victoria, you came back." "I'll always come back," Victoria promised, glancing at Marcus. "If that's okay." Marcus smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. "Partners?" he asked, extending his hand. Victoria shook it, feeling the calluses from years of hard work, the strength that came from carrying more than his share of burden. "Partners," she agreed. As Sophie ran over to hug them both, Victoria realized that sometimes the most important victories had nothing to do with winning or losing. Sometimes they were about seeing what had always been there, waiting for someone to look beyond the surface. Friday night dinner had become a tradition. 3 months after that first badminton match, Victoria sat at Marcus's small kitchen table, helping Sophie with homework, while Marcus cooked. The apartment was modest but warm, filled with photos and Sophie's artwork. The executive who'd once dined alone in expensive restaurants had discovered that happiness tasted better at a crowded table with people who knew her beyond her title. Marcus served a simple pasta dish that Sophie declared the best in the world. Victoria agreed, though. She'd eaten at Michelin-starred restaurants across the globe. It wasn't about the food, but about Sophie's laughter, Marcus's quiet humor, the feeling of belonging that no amount of success had ever provided. Later, as Sophie practiced badminton serves in the living room with a balloon, Marcus and Victoria stood on the small balcony looking out at the city lights. "Thank you," Victoria said softly. "For what?" Marcus asked. "For beating me that day, for showing me what I was missing." Marcus turned to her, his gray eyes warm. "You gave Sophie opportunities I never could. You gave me something more precious," Victoria said. "A family I didn't know I needed." As Marcus pulled her closer, Sophie called out that she'd gotten 10 balloon hits in a row. They went inside to celebrate the achievement with ice cream and stories. Victoria realized that she'd spent years building an empire, but Marcus and Sophie had given her something infinitely more valuable, a home. The country club now had a new program offering free lessons to underprivileged children, funded by the Sterling Foundation. Marcus coached on weekends, teaching patience and persistence along with proper form. Victoria often joined him, no longer the CEO, who'd mockingly challenged a janitor, but a partner who'd learned that the most important matches weren't about winning, but about showing up, playing fair, and recognizing the champion in everyone, even those the world overlooked. Sophie grew stronger, more confident, her natural talent blooming under proper instruction. But more importantly, she grew up knowing that people could surprise you, that kindness could come from unexpected places, and that sometimes a simple game of badminton could change everything. The story that began with arrogance and assumption had transformed into something beautiful. Love hadn't arrived in a dramatic moment, but had grown quietly in small gestures, shared victories over homework, gentle corrections of form, and Friday night dinners. It was there in the way Marcus still called her Miss Sterling when others were around, but whispered Victoria when they were alone. In how Sophie had started calling her Tori when she was excited about something. In the family they'd built from broken pieces and unexpected connections. Some stories end with grand gestures, but theirs continued in ordinary moments. A CEO who learned to see a janitor who remembered how to dream, and a little girl who brought them together with nothing more than innocent faith that her daddy deserved to be happy again. The badminton court where it all began now held a small plaque. Everyone has a hidden strength waiting to be discovered. Sophie had insisted on adding even CEOs, which made Marcus laugh and Victoria pretend to be offended while secretly agreeing completely.